What's up? What's up? It's Coach Steph. As you're hopping on, say hello. If you're watching the replay, hashtag replay. Today I'm bringing y'all some very important information about diabetes. Okay, so I know this topic is super important. It's very relevant to our community. So I'm very happy to be able to serve you in this way. I apologize for, I had to reschedule this one a couple of times because we had some technical difficulties. If you missed my last live, I did an interview with Dr. Brown, who is a naturopathic doctor, regarding PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome. And so if you missed that, you can go to the events tab and click on past events, and it should be there, along with a host of other live trainings that I've done about mindset, nutrition, fitness. So yeah, as you're hopping on, say hello. I see 4 people are joining us. We're going to be talking about diabetes today, so if you have questions, let me know. Somebody put something in the comments so I can make sure comments are working today. Sometimes I can't see them. I'm super excited about this topic. I have like lots of notes. I'm definitely going to have to cut this down. In the past, when I've done diabetes education, I have had to do 2 parts because there's a lot that I could say. So I'm going to really try and make it concise. And so if you have questions, put in the questions. That way I can actually answer the questions that you have in particular. Now, with that said, I am a registered dietitian, so you can ask me something about, you know, nutrition, diabetes management. I am a certified personal trainer. You can ask me about exercise as well. I'm not an expert in the medication part, so nurses, doctors, and certified diabetes educators are it's more in their realm to answer questions about like metformin or if you're on medication. So that is not my wheelhouse. So if you have any questions about nutrition or exercise, you can ask me about that. I'm going to check comments on my phone because I don't see any comments. And it's like blinking weird. So let me just double check. Sometimes I can see them on my phone versus actually when I'm in the event. So hold on, y'all. Yeah, I don't see them. So hopefully it'll stop doing that. I don't know what's up with Facebook lately. I have not had great luck. But like I said, I have tons of information for you guys today. I'm going to keep checking comments. But let's get started. I'm glad and happy that you all could join me today. So we're going to talk about, I'm going to try to touch on all of these topics. So we're going to talk about like what carbohydrates are, because that's like the main macronutrient that is important when you're talking about diabetes. And we're going to talk about the difference between type 2 diabetes and type 1, right? We're going to talk about some of the risk factors, some of the symptoms, some of the labs that you need to know. You need to know your lab numbers and get a copy of them. If you don't know how to get them online, a lot of places have them online. You need to know your numbers, and we can talk about the nutrition part too. So like I said, I have like, I don't even know how long these notes are. It's a lot of pages of notes, but I'm going to try and like get the highlights and answer y'all's questions if I can see your comments. So let's get started. Okay. So number 1, what is diabetes? Okay. So diabetes is a condition where your body does not utilize the carbohydrates properly. So there's 2 types of diabetes. Okay, there's insulin resistant type 2 diabetes, and then there is type 1 diabetes that has more to do with your pancreas and it not working properly. Okay, so let me just kind of break this down for you so that you can understand. So when we eat food, we start the digestion process in our mouth. Like saliva has different enzymes in it, and so like if you hold like a cracker in your mouth, it would start to like get mushy and break up because of the moisture, but also because there are enzymes working in your mouth that start to break down carbohydrate. You swallow, the food goes into your stomach. Again, there's acids and enzymes and things that are breaking down your food. As your food goes through your intestines, it's being broken down even more, and your intestines have little hairs called villi and microvilli that help to extract the nutrients from your food. Okay? If y'all are leaving comments, I can't see them. Sorry. So once your intestines extract those nutrients, it goes into your bloodstream. Okay? In your bloodstream, you have lots of different processes that go on, but in terms of diabetes, if there is quote unquote sugar, right, in your bloodstream from eating carbohydrates, your pancreas will send out insulin, right? And so insulin is kind of like the UPS driver, okay? It's like the UPS driver, and so the UPS driver says, okay, here's a package of this sugar, and I'm going to take it to the tissues. The tissues are your muscles. Your muscles are the ones that need the carbohydrate. So your insulin acts as the UPS driver, taking it to your muscle to give it to the muscle in order for the muscle to be able to use it, in order for the sugar to be able to come into the muscle to be used, because the sugar can't get in there without the insulin. Okay, so because of this, let's say obesity, for example, is one way or one factor that decreases the ability for your muscles to take in that insulin, right? So you have, an obese person who has just eaten a meal, and you have sugar in your blood. The insulin says, okay, I'm the UPS driver, I'm gonna take this to your muscles, right? But because of different factors of insulin resistance, it can't get in there, right? The insulin is trying to give your muscles this sugar, and your body's like, nah, I'm good, right? And so then you have a buildup of sugar in your blood, and that is like type 2 diabetes, right? So it's where your tissues aren't accepting the insulin, and now the insulin, the insulin and the sugar, and now it has nowhere to go. It's just like in your body, right? And it's building up in your body, and then it starts messing with your eyes, and you could have issues with seeing, or your kidneys, or it can cause lots of issues in your body, right? So that's insulin resistance. It means that the muscles are not accepting the insulin. Then type 1 diabetes is where you eat your food, but when your intestines absorb the sugar, right, it goes into your bloodstream, but the UPS driver, he's on break, or he's about to get fired because he's not doing his job. The insulin's not coming. The pancreas is not spitting out the insulin, okay? And so it's not that your muscles can't take the sugar. It is that the UPS driver, the insulin, is not, he's on break. He's on vacation. He's not here, right? And so again, you have a buildup of insulin. So a lot of times in type 1 diabetes, you'll have people who take insulin. They may have an insulin pump, or they may like take shots because their pancreas is not spitting out the insulin. Now, a lot of times too, after you've had diabetes, like type 2 diabetes for a long time, you may also need insulin as well. But I hope this is making sense. I can't see no comments, y'all. And I know there are comments. So let me just double check if I can see it on my phone, because it wouldn't let me see it earlier. I hope this is making sense. So normally, if I can't see comments, then I will get out of the live and come back like when I get done, and I'll be able to see comments. So I'll have to go back and answer your comments. Okay. Hope this is making sense. All right, so type 2 diabetes, type 1 diabetes. So really what we're going to be talking about is type 2 diabetes, because you really can't like prevent type 1. Type 1 is just like your pancreas isn't working, and I don't think that there's a way to really prevent that. So we're really talking about type 2 diabetes today, okay? So because carbohydrates are the main sources of sugar, right? That's the macronutrient that's really important to monitor. The other macronutrients are important as well. So when I say macronutrients, there's only 3: protein, carbohydrate, and fat. Okay, that's the only way you get calories. And alcohol. Alcohol is, you can also get calories from alcohol. But we're going to focus on those 3. So I got my son's thing here so y'all can kind of see. This right here is a demonstration of carbohydrate, right? So what happens is, remember I said the digestion process starts in your mouth with carbohydrates. So when you eat complex carbohydrates, meaning that like oatmeal, whole grains, whole wheat, whole brown rice, things that are complex carbohydrates, it means that like if each one of these is a sugar molecule, then all carbohydrates are starches, complex carbohydrates. They're sugar molecules that are chemically bonded to one another. That's all that is. And so when you eat complex carbohydrates or like fiber-rich foods or, carbohydrate like starches, it breaks down into sugar, right? But it takes longer. So if I were to eat this, right, my body literally has to say, okay, let me break this bond, let me break this bond, let me break this bond, right? And then these free sugar molecules are going into your bloodstream, right? And so that does trigger an insulin response, but it's much slower, right? So the insulin response is going to be a lot slower because your body's having to break apart these bonds, and so this will go into your bloodstream, and then this will go into your bloodstream, right? And so we want that. That's a good thing, because our insulin isn't, our pancreas isn't spitting out tons of insulin and taking it all into the muscle all at once. So the reason why that's bad is because if the insulin is taking the sugar into our muscles or into our tissues and we don't really need it, we don't need it for energy right now, then it's going to store it, right? It's going to store it as fat. And so that's really what fat is fat is just stored energy, right? And so we want to keep the insulin response. We need insulin, right? We need to be able to have insulin to take into the cells, but we don't want it to be spiked really high and go in and take all your blood sugars from your bloodstream and deposit it as fat. Okay, so when we eat things like refined grains or candy, cookies, baked goods, those carbohydrates already come unattached, right? So when you're eating them, they're already unattached like this, and so when you eat them, they can immediately go into your bloodstream because your body doesn't have to break them apart, right? They're already broken apart, and so it spikes the insulin, right? So all of these can go into your bloodstream at one time, and so then your insulin's like, okay, I need to go out and take this sugar into the muscles, right? So a couple of things that you can do. Number one, choose complex carbohydrates, right? We want to choose fruits and vegetables. We want to choose whole grains. We want to choose complex carbohydrates, right? But we can also, like, say you are having, let's say you're having a dessert, or let's say you're having even fruit. actually, I think I mentioned fruit earlier, but fruit has fructose, which is it's fruit sugar. It's fructose. And so it's not like a complex, but fruit is not bad for you. I know that people are always like, oh, you can't have fruit because it has too much sugar. And so there's so many benefits to fruit, you guys. So it's not that you can't have it. It's about quantity, frequency, and what else do you have on your plate? So really anybody with diabetes and anybody period should be having some protein at every meal. Right? And so if you have some simple carbohydrates with protein or with fat at the same meal, right? Your body's digesting that all at one time, and it's not going to spike your blood sugars as high. So if you were just to eat just candy, right? Here's all this unattached sugar, it's going to go in your bloodstream, right? But if you have this with, let's just say this is protein, okay? With protein, like your body it's metabolizing the protein, it's also metabolizing the sugar at the same time, so it still slows down the process of this sugar just going into your bloodstream and the insulin response. I hope this is making sense because I can't see no comments, okay? So, when you eat, and let me tell you a little secret. A diabetic diet is just a healthy diet. Literally, that's all it is. A diabetic diet is carb controlled, meaning that, you're having a half a cup, which is about the size of your cupped palm, like what you could fit in your palm, a half a cup of starchy vegetable or starchy, some kind of starch, or, and it's protein and it's veggie. So it's just a balanced plate, right? That's all it is. It's a balanced plate. It's eating every 3 to 4 hours. It's drinking water. It's staying away from processed foods. It's staying away from high fat foods, because if you have diabetes, you are just as likely to have, I think, a heart attack as someone who's already had a heart attack. So the reason why it's important for people with diabetes to really not eat like high fatty foods in terms of like trans fat and saturated fat is because it puts you at higher risk for heart disease. Okay, so I hope this is making sense. Okay, so you have carbohydrates. You can have carbohydrates, you guys. You can have them, but choose complex carbohydrates and always have them with protein and some fat in your diet. So what happens is when you have protein and fat usually go together. So if you think of any like protein foods, nuts have protein and they have a lot of fat. Meat has protein and it has fat. Now, depending on the cut of meat, will depend on how fatty it is, but protein and fat usually go hand in hand. So when you look at your plate, it should be protein, non-starchy vegetables like asparagus or Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, there's a lot of them, and then sometimes a starchy carb. You don't have to have a starchy carb at every meal. And actually what I tell my clients is, if you worked out that day, like at dinner, for example, then have the carb, right? But if you didn't work out, then skip the carb and have extra vegetables, okay? So I feel like I'm getting ahead of myself, but okay. So you have carbohydrates. So some are simple and they're easily broken down, and then you have starches, which are your whole wheats, your oatmeals, your starchy vegetables, etc. And then those foods also have fiber. So fiber plays a really important role because fiber is in like fruits and vegetables, but fiber doesn't get broken down and like absorbed into your body. We just poop it out. And so fiber is helpful to decrease the insulin response because it kind of traps it inhibits the absorption, and so we just poop it out, right? And so I can tell you a long process of how it helps with cholesterol, but just know that, like, number one, you can't get around eating vegetables. Fruits and vegetables, have them, okay? Don't let anybody tell you that you can't have fruits. You can have them, but you just need to have them in a sensible way. Make sure your portion control, and make sure that you have some sort of protein with it, okay? Okay. I'm just looking at my notes real quick. Okay, so what are some risk factors of diabetes? So family history. If you've been pregnant before and you had gestational diabetes, that is also a risk factor for actual diabetes. Obviously, if you're pre-diabetic, that's a risk factor for having diabetes. If you're physically inactive, if you're a person of color, your age, and being overweight. So your BMI, or your ratio of your height to weight, is also a factor in a risk factor for diabetes. Also your body fat percentage as well. So we want to be physically active, and let me kind of break that down really quickly. We want to be physically active. Why do we want to be physically active? So remember when I told you earlier that insulin is like the UPS driver, and it's taking these sugar molecules and it's depositing them into your muscles, and it's giving them to your muscles, right? And so, but if you don't need this energy, it will store it as fat. If you're exercising, your body is going to be needing more of this energy. It's going to be needing more. It's going to be more receptive, right? So when your muscles do work, when you lift, when you run, when you're active, you're out gardening, you're washing your car, your body needs more energy in order for your muscles to work, right? And so because it's utilizing the energy, your cells are going to be more receptive to accepting these sugars from the insulin into your muscles whenever you're exercising, okay? So when you're exercising, it will decrease the amount of blood sugar in your bloodstream. Why? Because the insulin is taking these sugars into your muscles, okay? Which is a good thing. That lowers your blood sugars, the sugars in your blood, right? That also means, though, that you need to eat, right? Because low blood sugar is just as dangerous as really high blood sugar. So my dad is a diabetic, and he goes and he'll mow the grass. He mows everybody's grass. He mows the church grass. He's mowing everybody's grass, and it's 3, 4 o'clock, and he hasn't eaten. He's wondering why he's feeling dizzy. You have to eat. If you're going to go work out and you're a diabetic, no intermittent fasting for you, it's really not healthy to work out on an empty stomach, because your blood sugars can go too low because of what I mentioned earlier. Okay? So you want to eat before you work out, because your muscles are more receptive. It needs that energy to continue to do work, which lowers your blood sugars, and so that can be dangerous if you haven't eaten. Again, hope this is making sense. I'm going to check and see if I can see any comments again. Hold on, y'all. Because I know y'all have questions, but I just can't see them. Yep, I really can't see them. Okay. All right, so I'm going to keep going. Okay, so we talked about some of the risk factors, right? So fat around your abdomen. So this is another one. So some of us gain weight, like we gain weight in our hips more. But if you have fat around your abdomen, right, you have a lot of fat around your organs, right? And so that is highly correlated to insulin resistance. So that's why, that's just heredity. Like, some people just gain the fat, or trunkal obesity is what we call it. And that's the dangerous kind of fat. So you really want to exercise, eat right, you know, stay moving, stay active, because that can be a high risk for diabetes as well. So you're at increased risk for developing diabetes if you are a woman with a waist circumference of 35 inches or more. So if you were to measure your waist and you're 35 inches or more, you are at higher risk of diabetes. Okay? So some symptoms. Some people are diabetic or pre-diabetic and they just don't know it, right? And so here are some symptoms. Increased thirst, increased urination, especially at night, extreme hunger, unexplained weight loss, the presence of ketones in the urine, fatigue, irritability, blurred vision, slow healing sores. And so that happens a lot, where we get, like, you know, our older family members who may have like a sore on their foot or something like that, and no one knows about it because they can't feel it because of nerve damage. Like, you can have nerve damage where you can't even feel like parts of your foot, and then you get a sore there and it doesn't heal. It's not getting blood flow adequately, so it's not being able to heal, and then, you know, that can lead to amputations and things like that. Some more symptoms are frequent infections, such as in the gums, or skin infections, or vaginal infections. Okay, so ladies, please know your numbers. If you are at high risk for diabetes, if you have a family member that has diabetes, if you know, we all know somebody that has diabetes. Please know your numbers. Ask for copies of your labs. If you don't know how to get online and like look at the labs online, please ask for a paper copy when you leave, because that's your health information. Don't let the doctor just tell you, oh, well, everything looks fine, or whatever. Like, you need to know your numbers, okay? So if you're asking questions and your doctor can't or won't explain things to you in the way that you can explain it, or give you some resources to help you explain it, you need to find a new doctor, okay? Because we already know that, unfortunately, Black people, we don't get the same care as everyone else. So that's why it's really important for you to be in control of your own health and know what's going on, so people can't take advantage of that, okay? So when you're taking your labs, you will likely take a glucose test, right? So typically when we go to the doctor, it's in a panel of labs, and your glucose is one of those, okay? So it should be between 70 and 99 is considered normal. So a level between 100 and 125 indicates prediabetes, and then diabetes is defined as blood glucose level of 126 or higher. Again, I can't diagnose you. Make sure your doctor gives you, that information, but those are the numbers that you need to know. So normal is between 70 and 99. Okay, 100 and 125 indicates pre-diabetes, and then 126 or over could mean you have diabetes. So your A1C, so this is something that your doctors will test you for, like if they think you might have diabetes, or if you do have diabetes, they will test your hemoglobin A1C, and that is just an average of your blood sugars over the past 2 or 3 months. So they can tell whether or not your blood sugars have been running high for the last 3 months. And so it should be 6.5 or higher means that you may have diabetes. Okay, so you want it to be really less than like 6, I believe. So hemoglobin A1C less than 6. Okay. So I have notes here about triglycerides and other things. I think I'm gonna, like I said, I have pages and pages of notes, y'all. So just know that you want to eat sensibly. You want to have lots of veggies, you guys. Lots of veggies, lots of water. You want to have some lean protein. Eat carbohydrates in moderation, and you want to stay away from like high fatty foods, the fast foods, these convenience items, food that you put in the microwave. They have a lot of fat. Turn your food items over and look at the nutrition facts. Okay, so you know the little, I need to do a training on this. How to read a nutrition label. The little percentages on the side, 20% of something or more is high. So if you see the little percentages and it says 20% or higher, that's a high source of whatever the item is. If 5% or less is low, right? So you want your, especially if it says saturated fat, you want that to be a little bit like lower. You don't really want any trans fat. I know that's kind of hard to, they don't have to label that. But you want to be eating single ingredient, fresh foods, right? So that a lot of those, like if you buy vegetables, they don't even have a nutrition label, right? You want to buy foods like that more often. So having high triglycerides, which is fat, that's basically just the medical term for fat, can raise your risk for heart disease, okay? So what can cause high triglycerides or high fat? Eating more calories than you burn off, especially if you eat a lot of sugar. Being overweight, smoking cigarettes, excessive alcohol use, there are certain medications, genetic disorders, thyroid diseases, uncontrolled diabetes, and liver and kidney disease, okay? So your triglycerides, let's know our numbers, should be less than 150. That's normal. Less than 150 for your triglycerides. Okay? And so if you're between 150 and 199, that's like borderline high. Okay? 150 to 199, borderline high. High is 200 to 499. I got all these off the internet. So 200 to 499, and then very high at over 500. Okay? So yeah. And okay, so that's some of the numbers that you need to know, right? Your glucose, your A1C, your triglycerides. There's a few others, but those are some main ones to start with. Okay. So let's just talk a little bit about let's talk about counting carbohydrates. Okay. Y'all might have questions about this. I'm going to go back and I'm going to read the questions, y'all. Okay. So when you look at the nutrition facts on a label, it will say total carbohydrates. Okay. If you get a label, I wish I had one. It'll say total carbohydrates, right? So that's the number that you want to look at. That's how you count your carbohydrates. So write this down. 15 grams of carbohydrate equals 1 serving of carbohydrate. Okay. Now, up underneath total carbohydrates, you're going to see fiber, you're going to see added sugar, right? So you want to choose things that don't have as much or any added sugar, but all of that, all of the fiber, the added sugar is indicated in the total carbohydrates, right? So 1 serving of carbohydrate is 15 grams. Okay. Typically, you can have about 3 servings per meal, y'all, per meal of carbohydrate. So that's 15 plus 15 plus 15. Okay. Now, do you want to sit down and eat all carbohydrates? No. We want to have some protein, right? And typically, what people normally recommend is non-starchy vegetables. You can have as many as you would like. And that's because people don't eat as many veggies as they should. That's because they have plenty of fiber. Even though even non-starchy vegetables do have some carbohydrates, it's usually pretty low, and people are not getting sick off of eating too many vegetables, right? So 15 grams of carbohydrate equal 1 serving of carbohydrate, and you can typically have 3. So what does this look like on your plate? You might have, I have an example here. I want to make up one. So let's say you have oatmeal, right? That is a carbohydrate, and you would look on the back, and let's just say, I'm not sure how much it has, but let's just say a half a cup has 15 grams. Let's just say for an example. You would look on the back and see the total carbohydrates, but that would be 1, right? And so maybe you don't want a half cup. Maybe you want a whole cup of oatmeal. So you would just double that. So that's your 2 servings. And then maybe you want a piece of fruit, right? 1 small piece of fruit is normally what I would say for about 15 grams. So it's not like exact, but it's close enough. So you have your whole cup, right? Because 1 serving is typically about a half a cup, right? So this is 15 grams, this is 15 grams, and then this is your apple. So you got oatmeal here, and you got your apple. And then you want to have some protein. So maybe you had eggs. Eggs are not carbohydrates, so that doesn't count in these 3 servings, right? But you do want to have the protein because it has protein and fat. Eggs have protein and fat to make sure that you have a balanced plate. Okay, let's do another example. Let's say you have yogurt. Now, yogurt is protein, right? But it's also carbohydrate. I don't know if people really realize that. So if you're drinking like milk, chocolate milk, or regular milk, yogurt, those have carbohydrates, and you have to count those, even though they're high protein food. Something like cheese, even though that's dairy, it doesn't have many carbohydrates, so that's mostly just protein and fat. So let's say you're having Greek yogurt, and I believe it has about 12 grams of carbohydrate per serving, which is about 15. We just count that, right? Let's say on your little yogurt, it'll say maybe 3/4 of a cup. You have like a little yogurt has 12 grams, which is about 15. So we're going to count that as 1. So you have your 1 yogurt, which is your 1 carb serving. And then we can have 2 more. Let's see. Maybe you have yogurt. Maybe you have a piece of fruit. And then maybe you have a piece of toast, right? Whole grain toast, right? So maybe you could put an egg on that toast. You could have a little butter. You could add some avocado on that toast, right? So have those 3 carbohydrate servings, and then add some protein, add some fat. That's a balanced meal, right? Don't forget what you're drinking, right? So if you're drinking orange juice or something with sugar in it, you're going to have to count that. And you definitely want to balance that out. You don't want to have too much juice. And the reason why, it's not that you can't have juice, is that it's, number one, very easy to over drink, and your body doesn't have to work very hard because it's already liquid. So it gets readily absorbed into the bloodstream. And we talked about why that's bad, because the insulin response, and you have high blood sugars because of that. And if you're insulin resistant, then it just backs up in your blood. So again, if you want to have juice, you can have juice, but make sure you're being mindful of the portion, and you're also having some kind of protein and fat with it. So something like milk, for example, it has carbohydrates, but it also has protein and fat. So it has both. Okay. So those are some examples of how you would put together those 3 carbohydrates. So you have 15 grams, 15 grams, 15 grams. So this is roughly half a cup of a carbohydrate source, half a cup, right? Or 1 small fruit, right? So there's a whole diabetic exchange list that's very overwhelming. I just always told my patients half a cup or 1 small piece of fruit. Keep it simple. Okay. What time is it? Okay, so I'm in 45 minutes. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to kind of tell y'all. Okay, so tips for handling sweets, because a lot of y'all might have like sweet tooth. Okay, so reduce your cravings for sweets. So you want to slowly start reducing your sugar in your diet, right? A little bit at a time in order to give your taste buds time to adjust, right? So that's one tip. Tip number 2, let's say you're eating and you know that you want to have a dessert, right? Balance in real life is flexible, right? It's not that you can't have dessert, but maybe you have your meal. You always want to have protein. You always want to have a veggie. Maybe you skip out on that rice or that pasta or that carbohydrate choice, and instead you don't eat that. Maybe you eat double veggies, but then you have dessert, a small piece of dessert instead, right? That's balance. So eating sweets at a meal will add carbohydrates, so you can cut back on like a carb heavy food item in the same meal in order to make room if you want to have a small piece of dessert, right? Obviously everyone's response is going to be a little bit different, so you want to make sure you're monitoring your own blood sugars and things like that, but that's just a tip. So you want to eat sweets with a meal. I don't care what you're doing. You always want to have protein, period. If you're eating a snack, if you're eating a meal, you always want to have protein, right? So you don't want to just have a standalone apple, even though apples are great to have. Have some cheese sticks with it, or have some yogurt with it, or even though yogurt is a carb too, but it has protein in it and fat. So when eaten alone, sweets can cause your blood sugars to spike, okay? But if you add them in with other macronutrients, then your blood sugars won't rise as rapidly, okay? So when you do eat dessert, truly savor each bite, okay? When you're mindlessly eating and you have food on your plate, so you're just eating and eating and eating, and you're talking and you're conversating, but you're not watching what's on your plate, practice, and this is something that I help my clients do, like, okay, we're going to practice drinking water first. We're going to practice gratitude during our meals. We're going to practice putting our fork down in between bites, asking ourselves and checking in, like, am I full? Have I had enough? Am I full? Right? So I want you to enjoy your food, but I want you to be mindful of what you're eating. That way you don't overeat or eat too quickly. Okay? Reduce your soft drinks and sodas and juice. Okay? So for each 12-ounce serving of sugary beverage that you drink a day, you could increase your risk of diabetes by 15%. Okay? Let me say that again. Let me read that again. For each 12-ounce serving of a sugar-sweetened beverage you drink a day, you increase your risk for diabetes by 15%, right? So put down the soda, y'all. I don't drink soda, period. Like, I don't drink soda. I stopped drinking soda years ago, and every time, like, if I do drink soda now, it's like way too strong for me. So just try sparkling water with a twist of lemon or lime instead. Try to cut down on creamers and sweeteners in your tea and your coffee. Okay, so you want to avoid processed and like prepackaged foods that have lots of hidden fiber, hidden fat. Sorry. So always turn over the items, because the front of packaging is just advertisement, y'all. Like, they have rules of what they can say, and they kind of sneak and try to say things to make you think things are healthy. Turn it over, get the facts on the nutrition facts, and look at the ingredients list. And I think I need to do a how to read nutrition label education on here. So if you want to hear that, then let me know. So, all right, I think I'm gonna cut it there. We talked about a lot. I am so sorry that I cannot see any comments. The comments never came up, but I'm going to check them right after this. this is a big topic, and I have lots of notes that I didn't talk about. So if you have more questions, let me know. If I need to do another live, I can do that. If you have questions, let me know. But thank you guys for watching. For those of you that are still watching, I did want to let y'all know one thing before you go. So we are doing a Black Women Workout challenge coming up very, very soon that I'm super duper excited about. It will be mindset, nutrition, and fitness. And I'm going to be hosting it. So I want you guys to go to the page, and there is a pinned announcement that says Mind Body Reboot. It's a Mind and Body Reboot. There's a wait list. If you want a chance to get a free consultation with me, I'm a registered dietitian, personal trainer. You can ask me anything. You want to go and get on that list, because that wait list is going to be the first people to be able to sign up for the challenge. It'll be $30 for 30 days. So $1 a day. We're going to do mindset work, which is my favorite part. So I'm so super excited about that. We're going to do mindset work, and you'll have coaching videos from me. I'm going to do some lives in here. It's going to be fun, and I think it's going to be, I don't know, it's going to be a great experience. So check that out. Go and get on the wait list so you can be the first to know about when this is coming up. And I think that's it, guys. If you have questions, let me know. Again, thank you for watching. And go and RSVP for any other lives that I already have in the group. I have a couple of them on Wednesdays. The next few Wednesdays, I'll be doing some trainings as well. So, y'all have a great day. I'll talk to you soon.